So welcome back to the show with Pfizer and Andrea, and I'm delighted to be joined by journalist, author, host of the Newsagents podcast, Jon Sopel, my friend Jon, who I've known for 30 years, I think.
Probably even longer.
I think it might be, yeah. So, look, I'm going to hold up your book. So here it is, out in paperback, Strangeland. I was at the launch. That was the hardback launch, wasn't it?
You were at the launch.
And it's a great read because what has happened is that Jon was the political correspondent, or the correspondent in America. You came back and you thought, we've gone mad as well.
So the first election I voted in was 79, when Margaret Thatcher came to power. For the next 3 decades, more or less, there were 3 prime ministers. There was Thatcher, there was John Major, and there was Tony Blair. 3 prime ministers, 28 years. I came back in 2022, and we had 3 prime ministers in 1 year. And if that doesn't ask, as a journalist, make you pause to think, ooh, what's going on here? Then nothing is going to. And you just felt that something had happened with our politics, and it was partly about Brexit, and it was partly about post-pandemic, and but it just felt like Britain was a slightly different country from the one I'd left behind in sort of 2014 when I moved to America.
But it's interesting, in the book you say that your podcast is called The Newsagents. It's very successful with Emily Maitlis, of course, and you say Liz Truss is the patron saint of it. Because she basically seemed to symbolise this thing of what people can last 49 days in office?
Yeah, I mean, the really interesting thing doing a podcast is you get absolute precise data on who's listening, what people turn off out. You know, so issues that you think are really important, like, you know, climate change, they don't want to hear it that much on the podcast. You talk about Liz Truss and the latest thing she's just said, people are tuning in because it seemed like there was a madness. And, you know, and Donald Trump, Elon Musk are doing the same sort of business for us now, where people are kind of attracted to, they don't want the complicated. And I think that so much of politics is about doing stuff that is quite complicated and takes a long time to deliver. And what you've got is, I think, people wanting instant solutions to very complex problems, and that's really difficult.
Yeah, populism. I mean, it's what Andrea's party's accused of a little bit. I was, I will come to you in a sec, I promise. The clip I always think of is the one, I remember Storm coming in one morning here and saying, oh my goodness, I've just heard this clip of Donald Trump saying inject disinfectant to deal with COVID. And when you watch this, I know Jon was in the room for this, so we've locked off the shot on the doctor, whose name was Birx. Deborah Birx. Because she cannot believe what she's hearing him say. Have a look.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to
you were there, and that's kind of the old-fashioned world that she represents, isn't it? Of medicine and science and rationality.
And of course, what Donald Trump wants is instant solutions. And so, disinfectant. I woke up to a press release the next morning from the biggest makers of bleach in the US saying, you may have heard the president last night. Whatever you do, do not drink bleach. The idea that this press officer went home that evening and thought, I might have to write a press release telling the president that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I think someone did it as well. Someone tried to inject disinfectant in the state. Yeah, rushed
it was nuts. I'd been trying to get in. I think Trump was due to do something in Britain or something, and I had been due to go behind the stage, where in the briefing room, into what they call lower press, after the press conference, and I'd been due to meet somebody there. And I went through, and the Secret Service guys stopped me immediately because there was absolutely a council of war taking place, because everyone realised that what Trump had said on that particular occasion was catastrophic. But it just highlighted this sort of slight sense of madness that we live in. And that's him on Air Force One, and he regularly comes back on the plane to chat to the 12 or 13 journalists that are there. The one thing I would say about Trump, he's got a most amazing gut instinct of where the public mood is.
Is this, just before we go on, has he put the picture of him being shot in the White House? Is that the
that Trump, looks like it's up now.
Is that the new Trump portrait? Isn't that unbelievable?
Yep.
I saw that the other day. Sorry, go on.
But to me, that is symbolic for him, isn't it? About, he's got through that. Is
Yes,
standing
of
up
course,
for the public.
Of course.
So
it's just that all the other ones feature people standing in classic portrait poses like JFK and Barack Obama.
But I think it was one of the most iconic images ever.
Of the 21st century.
And this is the thing about Donald Trump, that for all the craziness, he understands the visual image better than anybody. And I've seen him direct people in the White House saying, no, you don't want to start the camera there. You want to come in on a wide two shot, move in close, which is the instructions you're probably getting in your ear right now. Yeah. Because he wants to have that control over the image. If I'd just been shot or someone had taken a shot at me, I'd have been wetting myself on the floor. Yeah. Donald Trump stands up, does that.
I know, it took him like 2 seconds to realise.
Really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shows instinct. It shows a guy who's got an incredible feel.
So you come back to the UK, John, and you think, oh, it's happening here. And, I mean, we had Brexit, I suppose, partly because the two of the greatest communicators we've ever seen in British politics, Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, went all out for it, right? And how is it that we've got Farage and they've got Trump or Boris, if you like, and there's kind of similarities. It's happened at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that there's always that interesting question in history, which is, is it that someone comes along and shapes the events of a generation, or are they just the natural consequence of all the events that have taken place? I think that people didn't understand that the 2008 financial crash caused such pain and such anguish to so many people for so long, and they were largely ignored and forgotten about, and there was a huge resentment in our politics. And so when a Nigel Farage comes along, or when a Donald Trump comes along and says, the whole lot of them are rotten, whether it's Labour, Conservative, Democrat or Republican, whatever it happens to be, you need to do something different.
I'm watching Andrea here.
No, but it's more than that. I mean, look, with Brexit, I was on the campaign trail. I was the MP coordinator for the whole of Yorkshire, 50-odd constituencies of Yorkshire. And it was actually people had had enough of not being listened and talked down to by politicians.
Yeah, but that's it. Isn't
yeah,
it?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily the financial crash. It was just full stop. Generations of not being listened to and spoke down to.
And I'm sure...
I mean, I had people in the 50s coming to me. I've never ever voted in my life before, but I'm voting to leave. I feel that, I've got a voice.
So you won Ed Balls' seat, of course, which is another classic, like the old-fashioned world being knocked out by the new world.
Yes.
Although you were Tory then and you're Reform now. Is Farage Trump?
Farage is Farage, isn't he? Yeah, no, I mean, I don't like to compare one to the other.
Is he our equivalent?
But yes. Is our equivalent in the fact that, but don't forget, I mean, Nigel's been fighting on these same things for decades. He's been fighting against illegal migration. So he's got longevity and,
He used to fight for Thatcherite economic reforms, and he's now saying you've got to have big welfare payments.
I
don't know where he is on that. So
can I just add?
Faisal, go on.
So I ran as an independent, and I'm on the left. But what was interesting to me is that people would say to me, oh, I'm glad you've gone independent now so I can vote for you rather than Reform. And I'm the opposite of Reform in terms of my policy stances. But what they were looking for was an anti-establishment vote. And I think there is that really strong feeling of being fed up. This is a failure of centrist politicians, and I think this is happening again now with this Labour government, to actually address the problems that people care about. And then, unfortunately, we get these politicians that come in that are able to divide us, to start saying, oh, it's all because of immigration, or, try and point to simple solutions. And that will fail too, because that ultimately people aren't going to feel better off.
The lesson of John's book is that populism does not give you the solution.
Yeah. We've got Brexit.
Do you know, I hate this tag populism. What's wrong with a policy being popular? It's what the people want.
No, of course. There's nothing wrong with the... Of course you want
easy
to be
answers,
popular,
though, isn't it?
It's easy answers. I mean, look, people were told that Brexit was going to be the simplest deal ever, and 17,000
politicians that ruined it, though. I mean, I was. I was in Parliament at the time. You saw Bercow, the Speaker, working with Keir Starmer and some of the Remainers in the Conservatives, just to block democracy, and it was them who made it difficult.
But isn't populism clearly about? It's about answering every complicated question with a simple answer. No, it's so attractive. Get out of the EU, life will be better.
To me, it's actually why Reform do well, because we're saying it as it is. we are being honest with people. You know, we're not flowering things up, and people realise that we've got people who fight for them here.
So with immigration, it was taking back control. And we completely lost control.
Oh, we're completely lost. It's ridiculous.
But that's because we don't have
close. Boris Johnson made the deal.
One of those consequences of failure is that we don't have closer relations with the European Union and do not have the intelligence sharing and do not get the agreements with them, and therefore you've got many more people coming in.
The simple fact is we've got more people coming in because we're soft touch Britain. You know, we put people in hotels, we give them money. Did you see some people even giving driving lessons? Some councils. So naturally, people are going to congregate to Britain because we're soft touch.
Okay,
and
I'll just mention the book again. I love the fact that we just immediately kicked off into an argument here. So read it, it's great. It's a great read, Strangeland. Is this Britain's new normal available now? John, stay with us. We'll take a look through some other stories, all probably touching on this kind of thing. Oh, not the first one, though. Gregg Wallace in the Times. So BBC MasterChef presenter. This report is coming out. We haven't seen it yet. It seems to accuse him of bad behaviour, at the very least, with 50 women or more. And he says that he's been unable to wear pants because he's autistic. Right.
Honestly,
anyone? Oh well, we've talked about autism before, Andrea.
Look, I've got a son who's on the spectrum, and I'm neurodiverse. So is my son. He doesn't run around pantless, and he's 8 years old, and you know, younger children more likely to. Look, he's just digging himself a bigger hole. Wallace is clearly trying to think of excuses for his bad behaviour.
It's a thing, I guess, in TV, John, that particularly with freelancers who are just starting, they may well be young women, they may be 22, 23, they come up against, you know, these celebrity presenters.
You get it in politics
and
as well.
it's wrong for the celebrity presenter to behave like he has.
But also the other side of it, which I just think is so kind of reprehensible, is the statement put out saying, I'm the victim. Why aren't people worried about me?
It's very narcissistic.
I mean, it's so narcissistic.
Of women of a certain age, he said, like Kirsty Walk, Asma Mia.
Yeah, I know. And it was just ludicrous. I mean, I totally agree with Andrea that, you know, you are digging yourself a bigger hole and it becomes more and more implausible. And I think even people who might want to support him and just say, oh, people are being too woke and too precious, will read that. And I you know, someone on Twitter contacted me saying, I'm autistic. The idea that you are belittling and traducing a serious condition by saying, oh, yeah, because I'm autistic, I can't wear pants. Oh, come off it.
I'm trying to think if there's another side to this, but I don't know.
Yeah. On the other hand...
I suppose, Pfizer, the other side is this. He's employed to be a gobby greengrocer. And he's employed... And a classic BBC thing is the sort of Oxbridge lot say, we need people who aren't like us. So you bring in a Gregg Wallace... And he sort of does the job, but he's also coarse and unpleasant.
I'm sorry, but that's the idea.
To put the other side.
No, but that's the idea that as if you can't get a working class person that isn't inappropriate.
Yeah,
it doesn't know how to behave. Of course you can. Of course you can.
Yeah,
that's a completely diminishing of working class people.
Well, he says that because the BBC doesn't understand me, they therefore
well,
sort
again,
of
he's
prosecuted
digging a
me.
hole. I mean, I think it's really, he needs to shut up and say sorry, actually. That's the only thing
Yeah, I
he
think
needs to
that's
say.
probably that ship has sailed. In The Guardian, BBC... Oh, wait, there's another angle. BBC faces decision over latest MasterChef series. So the point being that he's got one in the can. I'm hoping there's no innuendo with that. And they're going to put it out, I guess.
I don't know what they're going to do. I mean,
Well,
it's
I guess
another
they
one
do.
from Tim Davey, the Director General of, you know, he's got an in tray full of, you know, thermonuclear radioactive stuff that he's got to deal with. And
because of the Glastonbury. Although it always helps when everything comes at once. We used to work as political correspondents. We noticed that if you're hit by one scandal, it's devastating. If you suddenly have three, it's not as damaging, strangely.
Exactly. Because
people don't know where to look, Speaking of this, Trump has got a bit potty-mouthed recently, and he's used the F word, and he's now... I'll play you this audio. It's him speaking at a private gathering of donors in 2024 and talking about how he tried to stop Putin attacking Ukraine back in the day, and a warning to you that this audio recording does contain colourful language. Let's have a listen.
To Putin, I said, if you go in to Ukraine, we're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I have no choice. The public wants it. The public. So he goes like, I don't believe you. He said, no way, and I said, way. And then he goes like, I don't believe you, but the truth is he believed me 10%. And I told you this, he believed me 10%. Then I'm with President Xi of China, but I said the same thing to them. I said, you know, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, Beijing, you're going to bomb Beijing. I said, I have no choice. I got to bomb them. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe me either, except 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay too. And we never had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
Wow. That's the first time I've heard the whole clip. That's amazing.
So look, Donald Trump loves to tell stories of the conversations he had with people, and they called me sir, and then they said I was the greatest president ever. So let's park. I'm sure he didn't say any of those things to either President Putin or President Xi. But the fact that where there is a truth is that people do sort of believe 10% of what he might be saying is serious. And that just leaves an area of doubt in people's minds.
Is it called the mad dog theory?
Yeah, the mad dog theory or the madman theory or whatever it happens to be. That you are, I could do this, I could press the button and those bombs will start falling, so you better believe it.
And I think that's a clever thing to do, actually, because, you know, if you're talking to tyrants like that, look, be warned, I will do this.
Well, how's that working,
So this is
though?
hard talk,
Because
isn't it, really?
Putin has been bombing Ukraine more. I mean, we heard all this from Trump that he was going to end it and if it wouldn't have happened if he was there and all the rest of it. Actually, things are getting worse. I mean, he's given Israel license
but he wasn't
to do
in
what it
power
wants.
when it started.
No, he was. But I think one of the fascinating things, and it happened this week again, is watching Trump get gradually crosser and crosser with Putin, because Trump has realised he's being played.
Because but what does it signify? I mean, the question is that, look, there are two things that America could do. One is to slap further sanctions on Russia, and so far hasn't wanted to do that. And two is to sort of give more armaments to Ukraine. Now, it's reopened sales of Patriot missiles to stop all the attacks, defensive weaponry. But is Trump going to do that and upset his base? Probably not. And I can't see him moving on tariffs as well. I think he wants to put pressure on Putin, but Putin is playing Trump and like a fiddle. And I don't think he's getting anywhere.
Pfizer's got a story about X, or Twitter as it was known, because the CEO's stepping down, Pfizer.
Can you imagine that job of the last 2 years, like managing X with Elon Musk as your boss?
Fascinating.
I mean, it would definitely be a challenge, but you don't know from day to day what he's going to say, what he's going to do. She quits just as the app, what's it called? Grok.
Well, yeah,
Grok.
Grok is
even.
Grok.
Yeah. The Grok app was...
We'll say this is a post on X from Grok, which is this AI wing of Twitter. Said that they essentially shouldn't have put out something before, which they had put out. Let's just have a look. We're aware of recent posts made by Grok. We're actively working to remove the inappropriate posts. Since being made aware of the content, blah, 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 blah. We need to say what the posts are. So Grok was essentially praising Hitler.
And also...
referring to itself as Mecca Hitler. So
can I give one example of what it did? So someone said, how could the Texas floods have been prevented, which have killed over 100 and there are 150 people missing? And Grok's answer, this chatbot, came back and said, well, Hitler wouldn't have let that happen. Hitler would have stopped white hate. So that, hang on, but it was a flood, wasn't it? It wasn't white hate that killed. And
where's that come from? How's that happened?
Because someone has reprogrammed. I mean, you are teaching AI what to think. You've adjusted the algorithm so that it's less woke, which is what Musk had said. He said last week, you're going to notice big changes in Grok as we make it less woke. Oh boy, we have really noticed the changes.
Amazing.
I was a grooming gang victim as well. She puts, one of the young girls put something out there because Grok was actually making her out to be a liar. It was terrible, a grooming gang victim.
But there we go. Look, here's the book Jon has written. It is called Strangeland. And is this Britain's new normal is the question in the book. It's available now. We'll have more after the break when Matt will join us. Thank you for coming in, my friend.
Thank you. Lovely
Great to see you. Always good.